Good afternoon. My name is Salima, and I will be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the CA Service Operations Insight Webcast. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. After the speaker's remarks, there will be a question-and-answer session. If you would like to ask a question during this time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. If you would like to withdraw your question, press the pound key. Thank you. I will now turn the conference call over to Mr. Stephen Sheldon. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SOI webcast for December 2013. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. We've got a couple presenters today. David Hayward is going to be speaking first, talking a little bit about the upcoming CA World in 2014 and about presentations that people can do about their SOI environment. And then we're going to have Steve Solomon showing a presentation about new SOI connectors and some updates to existing ones. That should be pretty interesting. If anyone has any questions for him during that at any point, you can put them into the Q&A portion of the webcast up at the top right. And note, that's different than the chat. If you put it in the chat, not everyone's going to be able to see that. So make sure you do the Q&A up there. And then we'll also have a time for voice questions at the end as well. Another thing I wanted to mention, too, is the wiki that we now have on the SOI page. Anybody is welcome to edit that. If you've got any questions about whether you think you should put anything up there or anything like that, feel free to email any of us on the community, and we'll get back to you very quickly. But I would encourage as many people as possible to definitely contribute anything you've got to that. At this point, I just put up a basic framework for ideas for how we'd like it structured, but the more the merrier. We definitely want to start getting some additions going in there. I'm going to be putting more in there myself, too. But anyone wants to put anything in there, either talk to me first or just simply go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and hand it over to David then.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Hi, everyone. I'm David Hayward. I'm in the Solutions Marketing team, and I work closely not only with product management on SOI, but also with a lot of you customers to bring your story to life and to deepen the community dialogue about your challenges and your successes and your strategy and vision for Service Operations Insight. So I want to invite you to think about how to share your best practices and your success. And here are some typical ways that I work with other SOI users to tell your story. We have opportunities to do tutorial webcasts where, they might be an hour long, they might be just a half an hour long, but we can work with you to help develop your story and present it to not only this community, but, for example, the infrastructure management community or the application performance management community or the service management, the service desk community and so forth, to engage them and help them understand the value of Service Operations Insight. I'm also going to talk a little about CA World presentations. CA World is coming up November 9 through 12, 2014. Call for papers are going to start in February of 2014. But I'm getting a head start, and I'm going to give you some ideas about what you might like to propose. Also, I'll show you an example of a single slide, a one-slide case study, which is another way to share your success. And, of course, there are the written success stories, which you probably have seen on ca.com. So just to get you thinking about how to measure success and the step-by-step improvements that SOI can bring you, here's some interesting data from one of the top analyst firms in the U.S. And they talk about their research showing on average across IT organizations worldwide, this particular problem, that often, before users, before the IT organizations have deployed SOI, often service problems are detected first by the end users themselves. And of course, this is probably familiar to you, having to resort to war room meetings or conference calls to figure out root cause of a specific service problem, and the great amount of resources that are devoted to finding and fixing problems as opposed to, let's say, building new services and adding value. So Service Operations Insight, as the case studies that are being told by customers like you, are beginning to overcome a lot of these problems. Another thing to think about is, how are you deploying? What are the phases of deployment of Service Operations Insight, and how is this helping you transform your operations? And the word transformation is often used by the users who have deployed and told their story about Service Operations Insight. And we can provide this map with you if you haven't seen it before. And it's a 5-phase deployment strategy. Starting out, certainly overcoming the legacy siloed tools that monitor applications or monitor infrastructure, and beginning to deploy more advanced silo monitoring in phase 2. But as you can see by the blue squares, this is where Service Operations begins to add value in phase 2 by integrating your events from all your different monitoring tools. In phase 3, beginning to model a couple key services. Phase 4, rolling that out for more service modeling and management and more or less closed loop integration with automation tools and service desks and SLA management tools. These are the typical benefits in terms of process improvement. And Stephen, we can make this available to the audience if anyone would like this, to give you food for thought when you tell your story. So here I'm going to just do a little show and tell and show you various examples of community members and how they have participated in telling their story to the community at large. SOI is a leading European retailer based out of Portugal. They have worldwide locations beyond Portugal for their retail stores. And they decided to do an IT transformation with our service assurance products in order to support a new business model. And these are slides from their CA World 2013 presentation. So this is an adaptation of that maturity chart that I just showed you. And back in early 2013, this is where SOI largely was in terms of their deployment of Service Operations Insight. They integrated Service Operations Insight with a full range of CA products, as you can see here, and many of the customers who tell their Service Operations Insight story show integrations with other tools from other vendors. Often we see Microsoft XCOM, for example. And here are the early benefits of Service Operations Insight. So this is something to think about for sure. Can you measure some before and after SOI implementation benefits? SOI saw a significant improvement in root cause analysis of business service problems, the services that they modeled. Mean time to repair was improved, as well as what they mean by power was that their operations level 1 team was able to solve 20% more problems than prior to deploying Service Operations Insight. One of the other companies I'll show you in a second that is a Service Operations Insight user saw up to 37% improvement in level 1's ability to solve problems without having to escalate those issues to levels 2 and 3. And Molina Healthcare is that company. So here's an example of a single slide case study that we developed with Molina Healthcare. So we're definitely looking for customers such as yourselves to develop, a similar type of single case study slide. You can see here quantitative results as well as what we call qualitative results here. And this certainly is a great example of a very successful healthcare company who made a transformation of their data center from physical to virtual using VCE vBlock and managing that with our infrastructure management solution, implementing application performance management for the first time, and transforming operations to be more of a service, a managed service provider model using Service Operations Insight to visualize and manage the services. They deliver services not only to their own hospitals, but also they manage healthcare payment services for other hospitals. So you can see they went from a traditional data center and a traditional internal IT department to more of a service provider model. And finally, another way to tell your story is through a written customer success story that we would work with you to write and have you approve. This is Lexmark, a world leader in printers that are used not only by consumers but by major businesses. And they were transforming their business model from not only being a manufacturer of printers but becoming an online services and software provider, for instance, managing their customers' printing services. And this is Lance Neal, who implemented the solution, and this is a video. These are what we call our luminary videos. So this is a short video, and he talks about how he transformed not only the business but the IT processes to support the new business model for Lexmark. So this is a great way for you to get some bragging rights about your deployment, about your vision, your strategy for your organization, and where you are in terms of deploying Service Operations Insight and some of the benefits. So that really wraps it up. I'm Dave Hayward. You can contact me here by email or by my mobile phone, and I would be very happy to talk with you about how you'd consider telling your story in any of these methods. So thanks very much, Stephen. I'll stay on the line if there are any questions later.
All right, thanks a lot, David. All right, next up we have Steve Solomon. Steve, are you still there?
I am here.
Excellent. Take it over.
All right. We're switching over. So just a plug for David and the CA world in November. A good everybody likes to hear from customers, right? Nobody shows up at CA World to hear from me, and they'd like to hear from other customers. And oftentimes in the past, free passes have come along with that. So if you've never been to a CA World before and you'd like to experience it, that is a great way to do it, is to work with David and pitch a presentation for CA World or a customer success story. And I'm sure he'll figure out what the rules are as we get closer to CA World to help you out. So there's my pitch there for David. And I'm having a little bit of phone troubles today, so Mr. President, Mr. Sheldon, if I fade out for a minute, please jump in and ask those questions that you have lined up, and we will go from there. And am I able to drive?
Yeah, it's going on.
Okay. All right, so brand new, so brand new, it became generally available yesterday. And this is the new connector for ServiceNow to connect Service Operations Insight. It is posted on the support site on the download list for the connectors. And so basically what I'm going to talk about here is, okay, you guys are, this is the SOI user community, and my team is on the line, so if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section. I've kept some of my engineers from India, and since it's almost midnight there, you know, I'm sure they're eager to answer questions to stay awake. So if you have any, please go ahead and jump in on the Q&A section. I'll try to answer them at the end. But they're here to hear your feedback and to make sure that if you have any questions, you'll be answered. So the question is then, okay, we have service operations inside, and we have our alerts coming in, right? And then we also have ServiceNow as an incident management service. So my team is not part of the SOI engineering group. We help build integrations and connectors. And when they came to us and says, we want to build a ServiceNow, we looked at the connectors that we support for HP Service Manager and BMC Remedy and said, okay, what can we do to leverage all of those best practices since we built service desk integrations before? How do we take alert management out of SOI, and how do we merge incident management in ServiceNow, and how do we build a connector that provides not just information sharing going back and forth, but how do we get real value out of it to make automation the real key so that, you know, we're doing things better, faster, quicker across the board. So So the goal of this integration is bidirectional integration between SOI and ServiceNow, and it creates incidents. And Saka has asked already online, how can we create problem tickets? That's a little more of a difference and a challenge because the integration today is based on incidents. And so if you're going to flip an incident into a problem or a change ticket, then what we need to do is do some custom coding on the ServiceNow side to do that level of work. That's not part of the out-of-the-box integration. The integration creates incidents in ServiceNow under a standard incident rules, and it's mostly the way that all of the integrations from SOI work with the help desk is on an incident-based rule. So if you're not familiar with service management, typically you'll have an incident, you'll have problems, and you can have multiple incidents against the problems, and then you'll have a change ticket or you'll have a service request. Those are different record types and have different API sets that are involved, so for its incidents. And what we can do is we can create the incident. We can also update incidents on either side. You can do comment changes or state changes in either side, and those will be reflected. So what we have is we have a process to go out and create an incident. We also have a synchronization engine that will go and will look for changes on either side and apply those changes on the other side so that they're visible. We also have an integration to bring over configuration items and services so that if you're managing services in ServiceNow and you say these configuration items are attached to this service, that you can bring those over or you can define them in SOI. So basically one of the key I use for a service is, let's say that we have email as a service and I have 5 Exchange servers, and if I'm having a problem with an Exchange server, then I know that it's the email service that is impacted. So that's the overall high-level scope of the integration. This is my diagram for how all of the processes work, and there's quite a few of them to make it all work. So from a service operations insight, we're doing the create incident. We're also getting the incident number so that we can bring it back and we can display it in SOI. And we also provide a URL hot link across that will show so that if you want to go into the incident directly, you can from SOI. And then our bi-directional sync. So there's quite a few items that happen in this at different points in time. I put the little picture of the elephant here is, if you've never heard the business case story, it's an old poem from Hindustan, which was India, about blind men and an elephant. What you need to know as an SOI administrator is that you're dealing with an elephant, and there's lots of different components. A blind man who touches an elephant's trunk says, geez, this elephant looks like a snake to me. If you touch the tail, he says it's like a rope, and if you're in the middle, it's a wall. Well, the good thing about this integration is your analysts that are resolving the incidents, let's say that you have a server failure and you send it over to your server administration team and they go accept the ticket, they start working on it. They don't need to know about the network operations side about SOI. And your SOI, your console administrators are saying, okay, I've got a ticket, it's dispatched, it's to the right group. They don't need to know about the elephant in the middle, because it's more than just a black box. So there is some learning that you'll have to have so you can understand the entire scope of the integration and deploy it successfully and know how to customize it to best fit your organization. So remember, you need to know the elephant, but your end users only need to see their side of it. Your network operations as SOI and all of your service management people as ServiceNow. So one of the things we didn't do was we didn't alter ServiceNow. So there was a previous integration that was available from the ServiceNow team that was a field-developed integration that used ServiceNow services. What we try to do when we build our integrations is build it so it's out of the box so that you can control it. You don't have to go to the ServiceNow team and say, geez, will you apply all of these changes in our test ServiceNow and then also apply all the same changes in the production ServiceNow environment. So other than having a user ID and password that will allow us to create the incidents, that's the most side of the ServiceNow customization. There's no special customizations you need. And for your service management team, it should be a real straightforward integration that they should not be overly concerned about. As we move on, so as you're all familiar with it, we have our ticket ID field in SOI. So we're built, and now there was 4, 5, 6 different service tests, 5 different service tests that are supported at the moment for the integrations. And then you have our little robot out here, which is that running integration in the background to do the synchronization. So when you bring up an incident, or you bring up an alert, then you have the option to create an incident. So you can create something against everything that's critical. You can manually create them. There is a lot of choices involved. And basically what happens is you can create an escalation policy, or you can take manual action. So you could select on one of these and say take action, and the action would say create an incident. It would go out and create the incident. Or you can write escalation policies that says, geez, if I get a critical alert, I want to always create an incident. Or if it's a critical alert, I want to do these other type of aspects. You can also, in the take actions, you can have multiple different actions. If you want to route and it's a VPN issue and you want to run it to your telecom team versus it's a server issue versus it's an application issue, you can also do some level of routing in your take action commands. So it depends on the data that you want to pass, and it is customizable on how you want the information to flow, what information you want it to flow, and what target groups you want that incident assigned to so it can be routed correctly. You can either do some of that customization in SOI itself, it provides that, or you can do it in the connector workflows that we're going to show you in a minute. So the key thing to learn is you can either do a policy to automatically take it off and make it happen, or you can select them manually and ask for an incident to be created. As we go down, and this is what it looks like. So if you can see in the nice block, we now have an incident. So there's something to remember with ServiceNow is there is a physical incident ID, which is a very long hex system-generated number. And then there's the short, nice, readable ID like the INC0110. 245 that we have in this ticket. And we tend to display for the users the short form name. Now, something interesting about ServiceNow is those names are not guaranteed to be unique. The big long name that you don't like to see is. And so when we're looking at some of the workflows, we may see the big long name because that's actually the unique, but this is the readable version. And it provides you a URL hot link. You click on that, it will take you over, it will log you into ServiceNow, it will show you that ticket, and you can action against it. So as you can see, all of the data in our test system that I took the screenshots from, most of it is all critical. You probably have some other information in your system that has different color schemes. Now, as I mentioned, it's not a black box, that there is some knowledge that you need, and the knowledge that you need is around Process Automation Manager, or CAPAM. So CAPAM is a automation engine that we use for a lot of our integrations to take information and go do things and orchestrate it. And you can set up commands to go issue tasks against other things. And what we've done is we've orchestrated the PAM where we've added operators that you can drag and drop into workflows for lots of different functionality, much greater than just the SOI use case. So to use the ServiceNow connector, you do need a CAPAM or Process Automation Manager runtime license to use it just with the SOI use case, just to create incidents and keep them synced. If you happen to be a place that has a full PAM license, there's a lot of other things that you can do with the connector. If you have somebody that is building PAM workflows, maybe you have CA Service Desk Manager as a side, and a lot of folks do, and PAM is involved with that, or you're doing some other data center automation. If you happen to have a full PAM license, there's lots of other customization available that you can do to automate different things with ServiceNow. So the connector has an SOI functionality, but it also has independent PAM functionality that can be exploited if you have a full PAM license. So there's a lot of benefits to using a single connector for both sides of the automation. And so what it means, any generic table. There's a lot of customizations you can do in ServiceNow. Of course, service desks are heavily customized, and so we have some generic capabilities in addition to the standard ones that we have. So from the PAM side, Process Automation Manager, there's a lot more functionality that is capable if you have a full PAM license or you're using PAM for other parts of your automation in your data center. And this is what it looks like in process automation. So what we do is we create workflows, and those workflows run different operators, and the operators do different tasks, and we've pre-built these for you with the correct APIs into ServiceNow. So if there was something that you needed to do to go get information, you need to customize the workflow for the SOI use case. All of these operators are available for you. So it may be that you have to go out and you have to create a problem as part of your workflow. So on the out-of-the-box solution, we don't do this. However, there is an operator for it. So what you could do is you could change the workflows, and this is going to be a modification, and everything in the world of PAM is completely customizable. The worst thing about PAM from a support point of view is it's completely customizable. So if you do change any of these, please copy the workflows and use your own workflow and develop your integration using the standard operators. Don't go write your own commands if at all possible, and use the standard workflows that we provide as a base, and then you can go change them around and you can add things to them. So as I mentioned, there's quite a bit of capability here. All right, so as we go down, so this is what a workflow looks like. So basically in PAM you have a workflow and you grab those different operators, and then you set up the different parameters to them. And the great thing about PAM is once this thing runs, you can go back and diagnostic, and you can look at all of the parameters that were set and all of the responses and how long each step took. So it's not just like running the script and saying, geez, it's running, it's out there doing I don't know what. You can monitor it, you can see it, you can check all the variables, and you can go back and look at something that ran yesterday and say, geez, why did it do that, and debug it. So PAM is very powerful. The more you learn about PAM, the more value you'll get out of it. But this is what the incidents look like. And what we've done in the standard workflow is we've added an exit point for you in a workflow, and basically this operator just says, if you want to customize the standard out-of-the-box workflows that we provide, which makes it easier for our support team to help you out, all you need to do is plug your own custom JavaScript in this box here. So if you don't customize it, it doesn't do anything. It starts, it says, oh, nothing to do, and it ends. But if you needed to do something about, I need to go out and interrogate ServiceNow and put some calls in there, and I need to write some JavaScript to go figure out what my routing is, or I want to have a JavaScript so that I can say if it's a server and if it's a part of this group and part of that, it gets assigned to this, you can do that right there. So we have a built-in exit point that says make all your customizations. If you can make them at this level, then it will be very easy for us to help you and support it and debug it. If you create your own workflows and you start adding your own operators, of course, support becomes much more complex and much more expensive. So that's why we said, hey, let's put in a standard place for you to do your customizations. So as I mentioned, you could either do them in the SOI console as you set up the escalation policies, or you can change them and do them in PAM. And the more you know about PAM, the more power you have. Just be careful to make sure that you set up everything and make it supportable if you're going to customize it and change it. All right, there are several customization points inside of the connector, and this is one of them. And this is whether or not you want to close an incident or you want to mark it resolved. So you may say in SOI, okay, this incident's done, it's all solved, it's not a problem anymore, and it goes out, and do you want that incident closed in ServiceNow? Not usually. In an ITIL type concept, normally we don't close incidents. What we do is we mark them as resolved, and then there's some process that will go through and say, yes, is it really closed? Is it a high, was the service done well? There's lots of other things that teams do as part of a closed process. So when we clear alert, do you want it to close? Do you want it to be marked as resolved? This is where you would go change those configurations around, and this is part of a PAM configuration data set change. It's also where you would put in the broker. Now you noticed I put in little black lines so that you don't point to my ServiceNow instance, but when you're installing this connector, you're going to need to put in your information on how to connect to ServiceNow and how to connect to the UCF broker, the Unified Communication Framework broker, aka Catalyst. So there's a few things that you need to fill out, a few statuses you need to put in. And you'll also see some polling characteristics about the timing, which I think is the next slide. So one of the things we do is on an incident create. So I say create incident, it's going to go out and it's going to initiate the PAM workflow for the create incident. And then what's also happening is there are scheduled synchronization workflows that say, oh, let's go monitor changes. Let's go look for changes in the two systems. And right now, this interval is set at 4 minutes. Every 4 minutes, I'm going to go look and see what changes happened in the last 4 minutes, and I will synchronize those changes. Now, depending on what your needs are, you can make this smaller, you can make it bigger. Maybe you say just I want to run every 10 minutes, I don't have that many changes, or every 20 minutes if timing isn't critical to know when something's been accepted or resolved. It's up to you, but it is customizable in the scheduling environment in PAM. So there's a few things you need to know when you're setting this up that you might want to evaluate it and say, is the standard 4 minutes out of the box, will that work for me? As we go through, also PAM has this dashboard. And this dashboard will tell you about the jobs that are running. And over on the left-hand side, you'll see instance. Those are the different workflows that are running. And the state is completed in 100%. And this is what we expect you to see most of the time. But up in the top corner, so I put a little caution box and a yin and yang symbol for peace of mind. So this will give you cautions if things are running long, if they fail, that's what those arrows pointing down to, or if they were user aborted, or if for any reason that they're not completing, this will give you the dashboard that you can go in and diagnose and say, okay, what didn't work and why, and go look at the failure. So there's a couple of things. It will give you the caution to say, okay, if anything's in the failed category or blocked or waiting or suspended a long time, those are the things I need to go in and take a look at and figure out what's going on with them. But if you come in and everything isn't completed, then you'll have the yin and yang, and this is the peace of mind, okay, the integration is working superbly, and this is your administration console. This is not what your users will go in. If you remember, the SOI network command folks, they're on the network side, and the service desk guys are the people working the incidents on their side. It's just the administrators that need to go in and take a look at this, and if for some reason incidents are not being created as fast as you expect, then we can go in and look at the waiting queue and say, hey, are we waiting for something? All right, ServiceNow. ServiceNow uses names. So Calgary is their current release, Berlin is their previous, Dublin is their next, by the way, that they're working on. This integration is supported for both Calgary and Berlin, which are the current two releases that are out there. So what we found is a lot of the shops are moving to Calgary and a lot of the big shops are still on Berlin. Now, ServiceNow also comes in two flavors. It comes in their hosted method in the cloud, and it also comes with an on-site version. Now, their preference, of course, is the hosted version, and so that's what we've tested with. You can go out and test with that. Now, when you're bringing in this connector and you're trying it out, don't forget ServiceNow has an open environment in the cloud of a Calgary instance that you can go test with. So you don't need to go to your ServiceNow team and say, geez, I need a test instance of ServiceNow. You can, but there is a free version available. It's their demo environment, and you can look it up on the ServiceNow wiki, and it will give you information. The important thing to know about that environment is it is refreshed every 24 hours. So if you go out and you create a user ID and you start using your workflows, 24 hours from now, that's going to be gone. So you can go do whatever you want. You can try whatever you want in the ServiceNow environment. You can set it up in your test. You can use a test SOI, a test PAM, and you can connect to their demo instance of ServiceNow and give it a try. So it's a great way to test the solution and to be insulated, something you don't have to go back and clean up later. Now, please understand that this is a connector that runs on a Windows server, so you will need a Windows server to run this. It does not run on a Linux or a Unix variety. The connectors with SOI are primarily targeted to run on Windows. A couple of things. When you go to install it, you must have a Catalyst container. It's a Catalyst 3.2 connector, so it requires a Catalyst container that's already out there. Now, you can combine connectors within a container. I usually recommend that you talk to our SOI experts that are out there before you start combining connectors and containers, because it has a lot to do with volume of data that's going through and priorities and speed, but it is possible. You must already have installed CA Process Automation because that's going to be critical as part of the install process. There is an XML file that has all the workflows and the operators in it that you'll need to import. And that you're going to be sure that the ServiceNow web services are available and accessible, right? If you can't reach them from inside of your firewall, when we call the web services, we're not going to be able to reach them. So if you have any firewall issues that are involved, you know, that's a good question to ask, and it's probably a good question to ask whatever team manages your service management and manages ServiceNow to make sure that they're open and available. On the workflows, so a couple of things to keep track of is that when we develop this, if I mentioned previously, we have several different help desks, and what we're trying to do is standardize the PAM workflows and say, okay, we'll do a standardized create ticket, and that will go out, and then it will do the customizations for ServiceNow, so we know how to talk to ServiceNow. So you may see things that say, well, geez, if I take it from an SOI black box, there may be two different workflows you have to look at, and that is that the intention is to try to commonalize in the common components as much as possible our connectors and integrations. It really helps standardize our quality, make sure it's bulletproof, and try to keep the uniqueness in the integrations and the connectors down to just basically what are the differences in the API calls from ServiceNow to HP Service Manager to BMC Remedy. So there's a few different things that you're looking at there in the generic workflows and then the ServiceNow specific. So when you're looking at it, if you're wondering why there's two, that's why we do that, is we try to make it as common as possible so that the integrations work standardly across all of the different service desks. And the monitored changes agenda, now that's one's going to be real important because if you don't start this, you're not going to get the bidirectional sync. So you got to make sure that you go into the agenda items, set the polling sequence times, and make sure that that's kicking off and running. All right. So as I mentioned, we've been going through a very elongated beta program for this connector with a few customers because everybody's a little bit different. And so now I will go ahead and open it up. It is GA. It is available for download. It is on the SOI download page. And it looks like Mutu is already ahead of me. Mutu is one of the engineers that built the connector. So when he's answering them, if you want to really know the expert, he is definitely online for it. So I'm going to ask Selena to open up the calls so we can take calls online or via the Q&A box. So Selena, can we open the call for questions?
As a reminder, if you would like to ask an audio question, simply press star, then the number 1. We'll pause for just a moment. And if you would like to ask an audio question, simply press star, then the number 1. And there are no questions at this time.
This is another good point for me to quickly say. It was requested that we put a link to the connector downloads on the community message boards. I just added that if anyone is interested, just to have another easy way to get to those.
All right, I'm looking to the connection, the link. Okay, so Mr. Riaz, you ask a very difficult question. My shop integrates SOI and Spectrum. I need to create configurations in my ServiceNow instance. Can I do that through the ServiceNow connector? There is a bidirectional sync. So if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that you can import CIs and services. It has the ability to push those CIs back into ServiceNow. Now, it has the capability. Now, we're not telling you it's a good idea or a bad idea because that's going to be completely dependent on the rules in your shop, right? So it says it can. So oftentimes in a CI, maybe the proper way to do it is not to create the CI directly. It's to create a change ticket within ServiceNow to apply the CI as an add. So it depends on how much of a standard ITIL view of CMDBs that your service management team has. Is the CMDB an authorized ITIL view of your environment, or is it a real operational environment? So if you think about SOI, we use Catalyst as a synchronization engine for configuration items so that we know the items from Spectrum and APM and the ones from ServiceNow, and we consolidate that information, we correlate that information, and we have that possibility of pushing that information back when you have a new CI. It depends on the rules of your shop if you want to do that, but yes, it can be capable. It's something that you need to try out, and it's something that we need to have a discussion with your SOI team and your service management team, or your Spectrum in this case, to understand how you want to do it in your shop. So we can push it directly, or we could do something in PAM that says, let's go ahead and go create a CI or create a change record and then apply the CI through a change record process. So Mr. Putri asked about PAM version. So this is built on the latest version of PAM, which is PAM 4.1. And so that's what we recommend. There is a PAM 4.2 coming out, but PAM 4.1 is the preferred version for this integration. Now, Mutu has responded. 3.1 is supported as well as 4.x. We do prefer that you use 4.1 because there is a PAM 4.2 on the immediate horizon. So for better compatibility and upgrade going forward, and I think there's some better icons available also. Mr. Williams asked, do we plan on launching the connector on anything besides Windows? Not at this time. You know, there's a good business case to whether to say we should be able to install the connector on Linux or Unix. The problem is there's a bunch of those, and every time that we launch a version of a connector, that means that it adds a big burden on our testing every time we release a new version of it. So at the moment, we don't have any plans to do anything other than Windows for this connector. If there is a business case, then that's why I ask you to reach out to Dave Walters, your SOI product manager, and let's go evaluate the business case for that. So not in any of the plans for the near future. Leo asked a really good question. Can the polling sequence be customized for severity? The polling sequence is for the updates of the records, and no, it is not tied to severity. It is a standard. So what we're figuring is that 4 minutes is a reasonable time if somebody in there puts a comment in one side versus the other to have it synchronized. There is a process also that a polling service won't kick off until the previous one is finished. So if for some reason somebody did some mass update of records, let's say that you had a flood, let's say that somebody was leaning against the power switch on a rack of servers in your data center, they hit it, and all of a sudden your network console was flooded with critical alerts, and those automatically became incident tickets out there in ServiceNow, and somebody went out and manually closed them all, and that goes through the sink. If it runs longer than 4 minutes, it will queue them up. So, I mean, it could be constantly running. And if that's not enough for you, you could change it to 2 minutes. So, you know, there is some logic behind there that you can try in your environment. Lots of good questions. So I'm going to stop for here before I get to the next one. Is anybody online that would like to ask a question online?
A question, simply press *1. There are no questions.
All right, then I'm going to go down to Pete's question, which talks about best practices and recommendations for HA. There is, and there are some restrictions on it. So since it's a Catalyst 3.2 connector, you know it runs in its own container. It doesn't run in the SOI environment like a Catalyst 2.5 connector would. So there are some recommendations on how you can do that. However, it depends on the level of HA that you're looking for. If you're looking for a 99.9, then, you know, single servers for PAM and the connector are probably good enough. If you're looking for something above that, there are ways that you can have 2 different instances of PAM out there running, and you can have 2 different instances of SOI. I would recommend that we bring in an SOI architect to help you lay that out. So right now, we don't necessarily have that as a documented guidelines for clustering because there's lots of different ways to do it, and it depends on if SOI is clustered, the connector is clustered, PAM is clustered, and of course there's just the one environment for ServiceNow. So those we tend to best say, let's have a discussion over those and talk about it. But our services folks deploying the connector have been deploying it in a HA method in some of our beta customers. Maximum, I'm not sure that I understand your question. Is there an integration for SOI services and CI from CMDB? So if you mean that you can import the configuration items out of ServiceNow into SOI, yes. And if they're configured as a service with multiple CIs attached, that's a yes. So if you want to jump online or you want to add another question, that would be great. But basically, when the connector starts up, it's going to go get all the configuration items that you've determined to map from ServiceNow, and it's going to bring them into SOI so that they're visible and they're part of it, and they'll be reconciled. Relationships are imported as part of the services, if I understand that question. So I'm not sure I answered that one correctly, but yes, the CIs you define are imported as well as you can manually import the services, and so you can share services and CI definitions across SOI and ServiceNow. That was the end of the questions I think was on the list. Now's a great time to jump in and say hi to all of your fellow folks on the community. All right then. So we will be, as Mary said, we'll be posting the community, as Mr. Sheldon, your president, said, that we'll be taking the information and posting the recording. We do expect we'll get more questions. There's lots of them for this connector. There's lots of parts. Don't hesitate to ask them or to reach out to Dave, who's your product manager for SOI, and he can line you up with some services or an architect to talk about the clustering, or if you have specific questions. And I'd like to thank Priyanka, Muthu, and Karthik for hanging on the line with us from the engineering side. They will also be involved if you have any of the technical questions on the connector. So.
All right. Thanks a lot, Steve. I really appreciate it. A lot of really good questions everyone asked. Thanks so much for your participation. All right. And until the next one, everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. This will conclude today's conference call. You may now disconnect your lines.